Perhaps one of the best new features in After Effects CS4 is its ability to understand 3D objects inside PSD files. Let's look at this. Here's a 3D ring, kind of like a Lord of the Rings type ring that we have in Photoshop. As you can see, it's fully three-dimensional, rounded edges, the whole bit. And by the way, this ring was made from scratch in Photoshop. If you want more information on how to do that, you can check out my Photoshop CS4 Extended for 3D title on lynda.com. What we're going to do now is import this exact Photoshop document into After Effects. So let's double-click in the project panel to import this the regular way. Then let's navigate to the PSDs folder, the media folder, the exercise files, and we're going to open up the OneRing.psd. We're going to open this up as a composition or composition crop layers. Either one will be fine. Now this is important. When this dialog box pops up and you have the option to enable Live Photoshop 3D, it's checked by default, but you might have unchecked it. So make sure that this is checked and then click OK. It will make a composition for you automatically. Go ahead and double click that to open it. And it's actually done a lot of stuff for us. It's set up a null object to be the controller for the 3D ring layer that we're seeing here. And it's also created a comp camera. It's a little hard to see what's going on with all these guides. So I'm going to hide the guides by hitting Command: or Control:. There we go. This little red outline represents the null object. I don't want to see that either, so I'm just going to take off the visibility of the ring controller. Now, what it's done if we select this ring layer and go to the Effect Controls panel is it's added an effect called Live Photoshop 3D. Now, in most cases, you probably won't ever need to fiddle with this effect. It's still good to know, though, that it's applied as an effect. However, sometimes you may want to use it. If you have created some type of animation, like maybe camera animation in the original Photoshop file, you may choose to use the Photoshop camera instead of the comp camera here in After Effects. Now, of course, the 3D capabilities and the animation capabilities are far beyond what you have in Photoshop, so it makes more sense to animate things and move them in 3D here in After Effects. You also notice we have an object transform we can open up here, and we have position, orientation, and scale, but all these properties are red, indicating that they're connected via an expression, or rather that they are driven by an expression. And what's really going on here is that they are being controlled by this null object. And Adobe recommends if you're going to transform the 3D object, let's say you're going to scale it down or something, that you do that to the null object and not to the actual 3D object itself. So in other words, let's say we want to scale this down a little bit. I would scale the null object. Let's take this down to maybe like 80% or something. So I'd scale down the null object and not the actual ring itself. Now, one of the things that just drives me absolutely nuts is that this doesn't really work all that great. I mean, I have a fairly simple 3D object here, but even then, if I try to get the Unified Camera tool and move this around, you can see that it's not moving in real time, and then it updates slowly once I've let go of my mouse. And you can see that that happens regardless of my 3D settings. I come down here to Fast Previews, change from Adaptive Resolution to, let's say, OpenGL Always On. And then if I click the camera tool and try to move it around, it still doesn't move in real time. Just going to take this back to adaptive resolution here. Now again, to me, this is one of the most frustrating things. I mean, this is a very simple, small model. You can imagine if we had an actual model with tons of materials and all sorts of stuff going on, that it would render even slower than that. Now there is a cool trick here. If you go to the 3D object, in this case the ring layer, you go to the draft settings. Typically I don't play with these draft settings too much because my computer usually renders things pretty quickly. But if we click this and put this into draft mode, it'll degrade the quality definitely of our ring, but from there we can just click and drag and move and rotate this ring around as a 3D object in real time, although a severely degraded image quality, but still we can move it around and tell what's going on. So there are some of the issues relating to importing 3D objects from Photoshop files. And again, there are a lot of limitations here. If we have a material on our object, or if our object is very complex, then it renders so slowly that it's almost better to go back into a 3D program and try to animate something there. But at least you have that functionality here in After Effects. And I also should point out that if we had a really simple model with no textures applied to it, let's say like a sphere or a pyramid or a cube, then those type of things render very, very fast in After Effects.